my channel Lang and Lit. Today's video is on a poem from class 12 CBSE, and that is an elementary school classroom in a slum. This poem is not only important from the point of view of your exams, but at the same time it is heart-rendering description of the plight of the children who are studying and who are residing in slum areas. Before I start with the main content of today, do subscribe to my channel because this channel offers you a variety of content. Name it and you have it on this channel. The first one being, as what the video we are doing for today, class 12 English. The second being improvement in English communication, and a lot of videos on vocabulary as well. So don't miss it. Subscribe to the channel now. And if you like this video, don't forget to press that like button. When you subscribe, do remember to press that bell icon so that whenever I upload a new video, you're informed of it. As this video I have put up on Premiere, so I would request all the students who are watching this video or all the people who are watching this video, if you have any questions related to this poem while I'm explaining, I'll be online with you. So you have this opportunity to ask me questions live or in the comment box. You can write your questions and I'll be answering to your questions in the same comment box. So if you have any questions related to the poem I'm teaching you, you feel free to ask them. Let's start with the poet of this poem, an elementary school classroom in a slum. The poet is Stephen Spender. Spender was born in London in 1909. Stephen Spender is basically a poet and an essayist. He had made revolutionary change in the poetry of 1930s. He is named among the major poets and revolutionary poets of that period. Now when we look onto that period, that was a period when the two world wars have taken place, and what were the repercussions, what were the impact of these wars on the human life is what is narrated in these poems. Stephen Spender was especially interested, he had a keen interest in the political and social reforms of that time, and he was a well-known social reformer and pacifist. His famous poetic works are the Poems of Dedication, Edge of Being, and The Creative Element. Now let's just glance into the background of the poem. This poem is being written by Stephen Spender after the two world wars. The society was totally changed. In those times, the poor had all the more plunged into poverty, whereas the rich were growing richer. So there was a huge gap between the poverty-stricken or the poor people and those people who are having all the good things of the world. So the disparity between the haves and the have-nots was too much. This gap was too much. This actually resulted in the social injustice. The people who were the haves or the people who were rich and powerful were given extra advantage over the people who were poor. So as the title suggests, this poem is the description about an elementary classroom which was situated in a slum. The first two stanzas talk about the children who were there, their condition, their physical condition, their mental condition, and their emotional condition. In the second paragraph, this description continues. Then in the third stanza, the poet tells the readers about the condition where these children live, the condition of the slum, how their life is. So total description of their life is there in the third stanza. The fourth stanza talks about how these children can be emancipated, how things can be improved in the lives of these students. Now I'll be showing you in this video the picture of the poem stanza wise, and the same stanza I'll be explaining simultaneously.
Now I will read the first stanza. It says, "Far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces, like rootless weed, the hair torn round their pallor, the tall girl with her weighed down head, the paper-seeming boy with rat's eyes, the stunted, unlucky heir of twisted bones, reciting a father's gnarled disease, his lessons from his desk. At the back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young, his eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game in tree room other than this." So here the poet describes an elementary school classroom which is situated in a slum. The poet says that these children are far away from the fresh breeze. They look pathetic. He says that their faces are dull and their hair is unkept. He compares these children, the faces of these children precisely, with the rootless weed. He says they are like the unwanted plants. He says that they are unnecessary. They don't hold any position, and that's why he's comparing them to the rootless weeds. Then he says the hair is unkept, it is torn round their pallor. All the hair of these children is falling on their faces. And then he pinpoints the girl and he says that she is a tall girl, but her weighed down head is what we need to take a note of. Her head is weighed down, and there can be many reasons to it. The first very evident one is that she is so physically weak. She is not having enough food, all right, and not enough nutritive food, and because of her physical weakness, her head is weighing down. The other might be that she is overworked. She is working at home, and that is why she is feeling tired at this time, or she is emotionally burdened because of the place where she is living, because of the poverty. She is overburdened, and that is why her head is weighed down. It means that she is not very interested in the class. She is there physically, but she is not interested because of her weaknesses. Then the next boy he looks at is the boy who looks like a paper seeming boy, and his eyes are rat size. Rat size means, children, bulging out, the eyes which are bulging out, and he is a paper seeming boy. He's as thin as a paper. Then he says the stunted unlucky heir of twisted bones. The boy is with, and he's an unlucky heir, and he is having a disease of twisted bones, and he is reciting the lesson from his desk. But the poet remarks over here that this boy has inherited the father's gnarl disease. Okay, so in inheritance we mostly get good things like wealth, like home, like property. But here this little child who's studying in that classroom of the slum is having, or is inherited, a father's gnarl disease, a disease of twisted bones. Gnarl disease means twisted. So he's having these twisted bones, and he's reciting his lesson from his desk. Then he says that at the back, and again he notices another boy at the back of the class. He's sitting, and he is the one who's unnoted. Nobody is noticing him. The teacher is also not noticing him, and he is there. He looks sweet and young. This is a boy who's a bit different from the other children who are looking as they are not fresh. There is no energy in them. But this little boy looks sweet and young. He is young boy, he looks sweet, and his eyes are living in a dream. His eyes are glittering. But the reason because why his eyes are glittering is not because what is happening in the class, but because he is looking outside the class where the squirrel is playing underneath the tree. And this sweet little boy with most probably a smile on his face is looking at the squirrel's game outside. So here the poet wants to tell you that inside the class everything was not proper, everything was dull and drab and gloomy. Whereas the things beyond the classroom, which this sweet little boy is looking at, that seems to be the nature which gives him pleasure, and that is why he is looking sweet at that time. His eyes are glittering with dream.
So this was the explanation for the first stanza. Now I'll be showing you the words which were important and difficult in this stanza along with their meanings.
Word meanings, stanza 1. Gusty waves, breezy winds, pallor, pale dull face. Stunted, not fully grown due to malnutrition. The fourth word, gnarled, which means knotted or rough. The fifth word is weeds, which means unwanted plants. The sixth word, paper seeming boy. It means that the boy is very thin as a sheet of paper. Now I am going to read the second stanza of the poem. It says, On sour cream walls, donations, Shakespeare's head, cloudless at dawn, civilized dome, riding all cities, belt, flowery, tireless valley, one open-handed map, awarding the world its world, and yet for these children, these windows, not this map, their world, where all their futures painted with a fog. In these lines, the poet describes the wall of the school, which are sour cream color. So these walls are very dull looking. He says that these walls are not clean even. The paint is actually worn out. Then he says that these walls are covered with images and charts that have been donated by different people. He talks over there about the donations. Donation here means the images and the charts which are there, which have been given to this school, this elementary school classroom as a donation by different people. So there is the first thing on the wall of this classroom is the portrait of Shakespeare. Then he talks of a picture which is the picture of a city, a civilized city with domes, with rivers and all. And it says that it is a city with which is cloudless at dawn. Cloudless here means that clouds actually symbolize obstruction. Okay, and here this city is cloudless. It means it is problem free, it is obstruction free. There are no clouds or obstruction, so the life is very smooth and beautiful in that city, and it is a civilized city, unlike these slums which are uncouth and very bad in state. Another picture over there is of the Triles Valley, which is a very beautiful valley which is full of flowers. Okay, whereas these slums in which these children live, they do not have anything of natural beauty. They are stark, they are very dull, they are full of smoke and fog all around. But these pictures which are there depicting the beautiful side of the world which is unknown to these children of the slum. Then he talks of another image, and that is of the map. Okay, there is a map hanging on the wall of the classroom, and this map actually shows the big places, the beautiful rivers, good natural things over there in the world. And but this map does not show their slum. Okay, and it says that there is a line which says that it is actually this map, this open-handed map, is awarding the world its world. So this open-handed map has been given as a donation to these children by another world. These children are living in a world of penury, in the world of poverty, in the world of lack. But the world map which is being given to them is by another world, a world of rich people, a world where every facility, every necessity, and even the luxuries are available to them. So this world, this map has been given from one world of luxury, of richness, of health and happiness, to another world which is actually living in poverty, which is living in lack, in dull and dirty places. Okay, and the last line says, where all their futures painted with fog. So this world is not, which is shown in the map, is not the real world for these children. Why so? Because the world they live in, their future is painted with the fog of the slum. There is nothing clear. These children are living in a very bad state in those slums. They do not have any light or brightness in their future, whereas it is full of fog, it is full of uncertainty and darkness.
That was the explanation of the second stanza of the poem.
Word meaning, stanza 2. The first word, sour, which means unpleasant, and here it refers to the color of the sour cream white or creamish walls. Second word, dawn, which means early morning or sunrise. The third word is civilized dome. Here it means the rising sun at the horizon, which is in the shape of a dome. The next word is in the same stanza, Triles Valley. It is a valley which is very beautiful, ice-free valley in Austria. Second is sealed, which means shut or locked. The next word is lead. Here it means the dark future of kids. Fourth, capes, a large piece of land that sticks out into the sea from the coast. I will read the third stanza. It goes like this. A narrow street sealed in with a lead sky, far, far from rivers, capes and stars of words. Surely Shakespeare is wicked, the map a bad example, with ships and sun and love tempting them to steal, for lives that slyly turn in their cramped holes, from fog to endless night. On their slag heaps, these children wear skins peeped through by bones, and spectacles of steel with mended glass, like bottle bits on stones. All their time and space are foggy slums, so blot their maps with slum as big as doom. So here the poet says in this stanza that this map is irrelevant for these children of the slum, because their slum is very different from the world which is shown in the map, as the only world they know is what they see outside this window, and the window of the elementary school classroom. And what do they see outside that window? That is the slum. They see nothing at what the map shows them, the beautiful rivers and capes. It does not show them these things. It just shows them the slum. Then in the next line, the poet compares the future of these children to a narrow street full of darkness. He means to say that that their future does not have much scope and is very far away from the radiance of knowledge. Right? From words it is far away. It means the knowledge it is far away from. In this stanza, the poet further describes by saying that Shakespeare is an evil symbol for them, because Shakespeare talks about the elite people, about the high class people, about the people who can be categorized into haves, right? And these children are the have-nots. They are living in poverty. So he does not talk about them. So he's like wicked to them because he doesn't talk about their world. The world he describes is entirely different from their real world. Their desire of being loved or by others and being accepted by others, and to have the things which the world of Shakespeare is having, actually in turn provokes them to steal. It makes them envious of that world. They also have the desire to have goodness and riches in their life, and that makes them steal. So it does not give anything good to them, whereas it takes away goodness from them. He also says that the sun and the ships which are depicted on the wall are never to be seen by these children. They don't see such things. So all the more these things tempt them to steal from the world, because they also desire goodness in their life. They live in small, dingy homes. Their life is going towards an endless night, he says. He says that there is no bright future like the other children of their age are going to have a bright future, because they are studying. They are having good places to live. They are having supporting parents. They are being supported by everybody in society. So they will have bright future. But these children of the slum are going to have a future which will be like an endless night. Then he says that these children are also so thin that their bones are visible through their skin. They wear spectacles which are made of steel, because they cannot afford the normal spectacles which are worn by other children. So these spectacles of steel are cheap and uncomfortable. The lenses of these glasses are being repaired with pieces of glass which is being roughly held. Okay, so the poet emphasizes over here on the hardships faced by these children. He says that the future is in dark and it is very hard for them to escape from it.
So that was the explanation of the third stanza. Now comes the word meaning from the stanza.
Stanza 3, word meaning. Wicked, which means evil. Second word is tempted, means to persuade or to provoke. Third word is slyly, which means trickily. Fourth word, cramped, which means confined. Fifth word, slag, which means weak. Sixth word, mended, which means repaired. Next word is blot, to mark with a spot, and then it is doom, which means disaster. Now I'll read the fourth and the last stanza. This stanza is a plea, and it says the poet offers a solution in this stanza. So we'll read it, keeping that in mind. I'm going to read now. Unless governor, inspector, visitor, this map becomes their window, and these windows that shut upon their lives like catacombs, break, oh break, open till they break the town and show the children to green fields and make their world run azure on the gold sands and let their tongues run naked into books with white and green leaves, open history theirs whose language is sun. Here this poet urges the authorities. Here he takes the names of three people or the three categories, and that is the governor, it means the authority, the inspector over here is the inspector of school, the people who are dedicated to the educational system of the country. He urges them, he asks them, he requests them, and the visitors. Visitor here means the common people. He urges them to take notice of the condition of these kids. He says that the map should be turned into reality for these kids. The vicious circle of poverty and the lack of resources, these needs to be broken. So this vicious circle of poverty and lack in their lives needs to be broken by whom? By the authorities, by the common people, by the people who are responsible for the education of these children. So then he says, all should help them to achieve and live a decent life. He says to take these children from the fog to the azure sky. Azure means the blue sky. He says it is all black sky or lead sky over these children's head. Why? Because they are living in these small homes, and the lanes are so narrow in those slums that whenever they look up, it is all fog, all smoke. So they have never seen a clean blue sky. So they need to be shifted from this fog to the azure sky, from darkness to the bright future. He says that these kids need to experience the sun and the beauty of nature, as this will lead to the desire of acquiring knowledge. When they will have freshness in their lives, when they will have clean and clear surroundings, that will encourage them, that will motivate them. When they will have nutritive food to eat, when they will be supported by people all around, then they are going to take interest in acquiring knowledge even. Then it says the white leaves. Okay, the white leaves here symbolize the books. Okay, and then the green leaves means over here nature. So books and nature are two things which are required by these children to make the improvement in their life, and this improvement can be bought by the three people or the three categories he has mentioned over there, that is the governor, the inspector, and the visitors. And then he tells us that only education and nature is the way out for these children, and this will make them progress and they will be able to paint their future bright.
So that was the final and the last fourth stanza of the poem, and now we are going to do the word meaning of the stanza.
Stanza 4, word meaning. Catacombs, which means tomb or cemetery. It also can mean an underground vault. Second word is azure, which means deep blue in color.
Now let's see the poetic devices in the poem. There are a lot of poetic devices. To name it, We can have numerous figures of speech in this poem. There are symbols and imagery, and the rhyme scheme used in the poem is free verse. Now I am going to discuss with you the various figures of speech which are used in this poem. I will be explaining those figures of speech in this video.
The first figure of speech which we find in this poem is the similes. The first being like rootless weed, where the children are being compared to rootless weed. Like bottle bits on stone, their spectacles are being compared to bottle bits on stone. Like catacombs, their houses or their slum area is like catacombs. The slum as big as doom. These slums are so big and they are the cause of destruction, so it is like that. Next comes the metaphors. Rat's eyes. The child's eyes are compared to as if it is like the rat's. Gnarl disease. Third is paper seeming boy, the boy who is like the paper. Squirrel's game. Okay, so the game outside which the boy was watching, the squirrel's game. White and green leaves, they are also metaphor for book and for nature. There are other figures of speech. The first being alliteration, which says far, far from gusty waves. F and F and F is thrice repeated, so it is alliteration. Alliteration is where the consonants are repeated. The next is surely Shakespeare, S and S. Then bottle bits, B and B. Then other figure of speech is assonance. Assonance means when the vowel sounds are repeated. So the first is belt, flowery Chiles valley. E, the sound of E, that is a vowel, is being repeated over here, so it is assonance. Other figure of speech are anaphora, use of repeated words in two consecutive lines, like run azure and run naked. The word run is repeated. Then there is an allusion. Allusion refers to the people who are unknown or to the people who are known or the places which are known, like Shakespeare's head, Chiles valleys. So these are the known things. So it is an allusion. There is another figure of speech, that is repetition. Far, far. It is repeated twice in the poem.
Now let's see the imagery and the symbols which are used in this poem by Stephen Spender.
The symbol and the imagery over there are gusty waves, rootless weeds, paper seeming boy, sour cream walls. So these are the symbols and the imagery in the poem.
So the last but very important part and characteristic of this poem is its theme. So we need to discuss the theme as well. Here the poet talks about the various public schools which do not take very seriously the things which are related to the poor children who are studying in slum. The poet emphasizes upon the class inequality, the mistreatment to these children. The children of the people who are the haves or the rich people are studying in good classrooms with all facilities. They are having all the good things in their life. These children of the slum do not even have the basic necessities with them to study in those classrooms. Their classrooms are just mess. Stephen Spender in this poem deals with the theme of class inequality and social gap with the help of contrasting pictures, and these contrasting pictures are of the two worlds, the world of the haves and the world of the have-not. People who are enjoying every good thing in life, and they are facilitated even by the government, by other people in all the society. They are being encouraged and they are supported, whereas these children who are from the slum area, they are ignored by everybody. So this is the call for their emancipation by the poet over here. He says that the people who are rich or the people who are the haves in the society do not have anything or any connection to do with these poor people. They are least concerned about their well-being. He says in the poem that even the basic necessities of food and lodging, nutritive food, that is a basic necessity, and a clean place to live, all this is very basic for all the people, and everybody who belongs to this world, all human beings deserve this much. But these children of the slum are deprived of every basic necessity. Therefore, the poet wants these children to have a living that is decent enough. So this poem is actually a plea for the people who have the authority, who have the power to actually emancipate these children, to actually work for these children. Those are the people who can be sensitized and made aware of the condition of these poor people and are encouraged to work for them, are motivated by the poet to actually bring a difference into the lives of the children. Because these are the very people who can do something to change the world to be a better place. These are the people who can make these children get real education, should be given clean surroundings to live, so that whatever they are doing, they can do it at their best. So this was the explanation of an elementary school classroom in a slum, Stephen Spender. I hope and I wish that this explanation makes the poem easier for you to understand and to enrich your learning experience. Don't forget to subscribe the channel, and if you like this video, press the like button. So till the time we meet next, happy learning and take good care of yourself.